All right, hello, wine drinking people. It's Thursday, March 25th, and we had an Olympic day of drinking in the store yesterday with 5 suppliers. Usually I only see 3, but I am taking the week off next week, so I figured maybe I should load up a little bit this week. And we had 5 good suppliers in yesterday. We started out the day with JT from Burton Henry Selections, who had some kind of neat, unique stuff from France. We started out the day with a pick pool, which you don't see very often. This is from Chateau Font-Mars, and this is from the Languedoc region of France. This wine had a very unique aroma of white pepper, asparagus, and lime citrus. Really interesting, very refreshing, and kind of whimsical. Very whimsical price as well, at $12.50. Then we moved on to the Pierre Morin Sancerre Vieilles Vins, a very typical Sancerre. Had lime citrus, that chalky minerality that Sancerre has, and very crisp and refreshing finish, a little bit of that sea salt character. This wine, very typical Sancerre, nothing crazy good, but just a really nice and refreshing white wine at about $22.50. And then we took a turn to the south with Jan Schaaf's Crozes Hermitage. This wine, pretty typical of a Crozes Hermitage, a lot of black plummy fruit, a little bit of black pepper spice. Just a hint of mocha, and nice freshness on this wine, though. Crozes Hermitage is 85% Syrah by law and can be 15% Marsanne or Roussanne, 2 white varietals. This wine, $36. And then another Southern Rhone. Next up, the 2007 Domaine Charvin Côte de Rhone. A little bit expensive for a Côte de Rhone, but Charvin is one of the top producers in the Southern Rhone. And this wine was pretty damn good. Fresh red berry pie fruit, strawberries, raspberries, plums, a little bit of that fresh flower and fresh herb note that you get from the Southern Rhone. Very nice, but again, a little bit heavy for a Côte de Rhone at $21.75. Again, from the great 2007 vintage. Last but not least, we had a little Malbec from Argentina. I'm going to be going to Argentina in August, so I've been doing a little bit of extra research on these wines. This wine we had at our asado. This is the La Madrid Reserve. A nice wine, typical blackberry, blueberry fruit, a little bit of soy, a little bit of that espresso, and dark black chocolate. Very nice and a pretty reasonable wine at $21. Nice selection again, JT yesterday. The next up, we had Florent. Florent used to be with Marie Brizard. Now Florent's got his own company called Wineberry. And Florent had some really neat stuff. I always love to see things like Maturin, and Cahors, which are just not wines you see every day, really unique and different wines. And I applaud Florent for carrying a portfolio of these wines. Very hard to find eclectic wines from France. We started out with a Jean Gingerling Gewürztraminer from Alsace. Gewürztraminer is kind of a love or hate varietal. This wine, very floral, very perfumey. And this one is a kind of a better balanced Gewürz, not overly floral and perfumey, that lychee nut character shining through in the fruit here, but very nice and refreshing and somewhat balanced. This wine's $26. Then we had Domaine de Grapillons d'Or Vaucluse. We have the Gigondas from this producer in the store, which is outstanding, again from the 2007 vintage. This wine's Calabac and Malbec blend. Calabac rather is a hybrid of Malbec and Grenache. Some crazy person in the University of Montpellier in the 60s, probably on some psychedelic drug, invented this, and there's still a few examples of it around. Kind of an interesting wine, but not for most people. Then we had this Cahors, the Cedrus wine, which very typical, one of the few places in the world where you find Malbec-dominated blends. This wine had that characteristic blackberry, blueberry fruit, and again, the bittersweet chocolate, a little bit of soy. Really nice. And then we had a Maturin. Maturin is a unique wine because it's made from Tannat. This wine's a blend of Tannat and Cabernet Franc, 80-20. Tannat's a varietal that you hardly find anywhere outside of Maturin or the south of France. Actually, I think we had one in the store from Uruguay once. But a pretty unique wine and pretty intense wine with black and red berry fruit, fresh herbs, a little bit of a raw meat character. Really interesting black earth and some gritty tannin showing up on the finish. Another really unique and interesting wine. This one pretty reasonably priced, also at $17. Then to finish off, we had a Montaubourg Chateauneuf de Pape. I don't want to say to finish off. We had a little champagne after that. This is from the 2005 vintage, a great vintage in Chateauneuf. Unfortunately, everyone's out looking for 07s now, Florent. You kind of missed the boat on this. The 05 is a very good vintage, but unfortunately, after Parker stated that 07 is the greatest vintage in the last 30 years, people have kind of forgot about 05, but a really nice little wine nonetheless. And then we had a little Blanc de Noir from Gardet to finish off the day. There's nothing better to me to finish a tasting than and a nice little champagne. This is a new, unique, small producer. Had a lot of that almond and nutty character to it, a little bit of that fresh baked biscuit, and some nice apple and lemon citrus fruit to it, and a pretty decent balanced finish. Nice little wine, $48. We're starting to get into more of these smaller grower producer champagne. Next up, we had the general manager and winemaker for Sanford Winery. Here's a winery that's gone through a little bit of turmoil since Richard Sanford sold it to the Terlato family. They had some drama there with Richard Sanford quitting and Bruno, the old winemaker from day one, quitting and then suing Richard Sanford, but they seem to have gotten things back in order. It's the 2007 vintage wines are very good from Sanford. I like their Chardonnay much better than the first time I had it approximately 6 or 8 months ago. This wine's starting to come around a little bit, showing some nice tropical fruit and that typical crisp acidity that you get from Santa Barbara. This is one of the few areas in California, well, the only area where you have east or west running mountain ranges. The Rinconada Pinot 07, a little blockbuster, a little monster, really nice. La Rinconada is their home vineyard where the winery is, and this vineyard was first planted in 1997, and now there's about 130 acres planted there now to Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and this 07 vintage obviously very good in the south as well. I've been touting it in the north, but 07 looks like in Santa Barbara, Santa Rita Hills, also outstanding. Two great offerings from Sanford. Both of those are in the store. And then we had Melissa stop by from Selected Brands with the owner of Tapiz Vineyards in Mendoza. As I said, I'm doing a little extra research on these Argentina wines, but these wines, not the reason why I get out of bed in the morning. Not bad, politically, varietally correct, but kind of ordinary. The best wine they had, they saved for last, thank God, was their All-Star Malbec. This is the Black Tears, they call it, from the 2006 vintage. Incredible, almost electric color. I mean, just wonderful concentration, wonderful depth, but still had, great backbone of acidity and a finish. One of the things that Malbec a lot of times doesn't have, the party's kind of all in the front of your mouth and then you swallow it and it's all gone. But this wine did have a real nice finish to it. A little bit heavy on the price tag, but one of the best Malbecs that I've had this year. We have it on sale for $55. Last but not least, one of my favorite suppliers, a man with two first names, David Roberts. David's in charge of all things French at Premier Beverage. Kind of an ambiguous title, but if you like French wine, you want to know David because they've got a lot of great wine at Premier Beverage. And he brought by some wines from the Rhone. He leaded with a little Marsan Roussan, Mascarlo, which really kind of a really nice, refreshing, kind of floral wine with some nice lemon zest and a little bit of whetstone minerality, a little anise spice. Really kind of unique and really good little value at under $10. But Roussan and Marsan blends from the south of France can be a little difficult to sell. The first red wine of the bunch was a Brunel wine. It's a single vineyard Côte de Rhône from him, the summer long, and this is from the 07 vintage. Again, I don't think I need to tell anybody much about the 07 vintage in the Southern Rhone after Parker said it's the greatest vintage of him traveling there in 30 years. This vintage has been on fire, and the sales have been very brisk. If you want to pick up the best wines from the 2007 vintage, you may want to hurry because these wines are not going to be around long. Like the top wine that David brought by yesterday, the Les Cailloux Chateauneuf de Pape from the Brunel family. This wine was stunning, a real showstopper, a huge wine with lots of raspberries, strawberries, and red plum fruit, exotic floral spice, just an incredible blockbuster, and we have the last 5 cases that are available in South Florida. He did bring by the Lafont Michel, which was also very good, another 07. You can read about that in my notes here in the text part of the email, but not quite as good as the Les Cailloux and a little bit more expensive. What are we drinking tonight? Well, I'm off for the next week and a half. The kids are on spring break, so I have to call Tony up to see what she's making for dinner. But you can bet there will be some wine open for dinner tonight at my home. And what are we trying to sell you today? Well, today we just got an amazing deal on the 2005 vintage of Robert Mondavi Reserve Cabernet. The 2005 vintage is an outstanding vintage in Napa Valley, one that you definitely want to have in your cellar. A lot of this fruit still comes from that original To Kalon vineyard that's right around the winery. And as an extra bonus, we've got magnums of 1997 vintage Mondavi Reserve at an incredible price, $159. I think we sold the 750s at that price on our last vintage Mondavi offering. We do still have some 750s of Mondavi Reserve in the store. That's all I've got for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni from the Wine Watch, signing off, saying always, remember to drink the good stuff first.